All right, so we are going into quiz number 16 review. Quiz is tomorrow. Homework is due tomorrow. Um, and like I mentioned, if you don't have the homework, please make sure you get it from the black box. Um, but I wrote out the formulas that we have to use in order to have a pretty successful quiz. Okay, so there are three formulas. The first two formulas pertain to section 8.3. And then the last formula, along with the first formula, pertains to section 8.4. Okay, so basically these two right here, this is 8.3. And then these two, this is 8.4. Okay? So notice how 8.4 omits the middle equation, right? It's like we don't need that one. Okay, but you do need the first one and you do need the last one. So the most important equation to know is the first one, because you can see it's used in both, right? But then it just kind of depends on which section you're doing your homework in. Okay, so the formulas. Well, the first one for the arithmetic sum, the one that we say is the easy formula, right? S sub n is equal to n over 2 times a sub 1 plus a sub, I just realized I put a sub 2. Correct that. That should be a sub n. Right here, correct the a sub 1 plus a sub n. Correct that. Okay. So what you need is you need to know n, a sub 1, and a sub n. So I did write that right. I just messed up and put a 2 for some reason. Then there's the alternate sum. S sub n is equal to n over 2 times a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d, where you need to know n, a sub 1, and d. Okay, so you need to know those three variables. And the last one, sigma notation. Remember the sigma notation, that E basically means to find the sum, to add, right? So on sigma notation, there is a lower bound, that A value, that lower number is important to us. The upper bound, the B value, that's our usually bigger number. That's important for us as well. And then there's going to be your number of terms, okay? So the n value, to find your n, it'll be b minus a plus 1. Okay, it's a little formula that we did yesterday. Okay, so those are the things you need to do the work in this section, okay, or this quiz. So we're going to start off kind of slow and then move on to some of the harder stuff. So this is, I would say, the easier things. Notice it says find the sum. I gave you a sub 1, I gave you a sub n, and I gave you n. So if you look at the little formula chart, if I give you a sub 1, a sub n, and n, that means you should be using the very first equation, okay? So you would be using S sub n equal to n over 2, a sub 1 plus a sub n. That's the formula you're going to use because I gave you those specific terms. Okay? All you have to do is plug the information in and calculate it. So I think I've said it multiple times when we were going over this lesson, 8.3 and 8.4, they're supposed to be simple. It's just plugging in numbers. That's it. So here we go. S sub 10, that's what n is, right? 10 over 2 times a sub 1, which is negative 2, plus a sub n, which is 20. Okay, so negative 2 plus 20, that's going to give me an 18. Okay, and then I can divide, and I didn't do it, but I can divide 10 by 2. Okay, I can divide 10 by 2. That's going to give me 5, and that's 5 times 18, right? So there's going to be 5 times 18. So multiplying 5 times 18, that comes out to 90, I think, because 5 times 8 is 40, carry the 4. So yeah, so that would be 90. And this right here is your, that's your sum, okay? So, and again, you're going to be able to use calculators. So when you use calculators, you don't have to worry about doing things by hand. You can just kind of push the buttons and you'll be fine. But you can see it's not hard to do the problem. It's just plugging the numbers in the right place. That's it. Okay. Now, part B is going to look a little different because I don't need to do multiples of these. If you want more examples, do the homework. Okay. But part B is a little different. For part B, I gave you a sub 1, I gave you n, but not a sub n. I gave you the variable for d. Okay, so if you have the variable of d, then you got to use a separate equation, which is the second one, right? S sub n is equal to n over 2 times twice a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. Okay, I'll most likely write those equations for you guys tomorrow, just in case you haven't gotten them memorized. But I should have them for you guys so you can know what's expected for what kind of equations we have. So, but notice I know what a sub 1 is, I know what n is, I know what the letter d is. Okay, so n is 12, so I'm going to write s sub 12 is equal to 12 over 2. 2 times a sub 1, that's 5. Plus n minus 1, that's 12 minus 1. D is negative 3. So it's going to look a little messy, but you're just going to have to try to clean it up a little bit. I know 12 divided by 2 is 6. So I'm going to write 6. 2 times 5 is 10. Plus, that's 11 times negative 3. So that's negative 33. So that's 6 times 10 minus 33. 10 minus 33, what do I get for that? Negative 16? Is that right? No. 23. I'm way off. I'm way off on that one. Negative 23. So again, this is why calculator is nice, right? You don't have to try to do stuff in your head. So 10 minus 33 is negative 23. Then you're going to multiply 6 times negative 23. Okay, so let's see. So 6 times 3, that's going to give me an 18. That's 12. So it's 138 negative s sub 12. Yes, it is possible to have a number that adds up to a negative number. We're just adding a bunch of negatives. That's just what happens. Okay, so we will be adding up a lot of negative numbers. That's why your sum comes out negative. But there you go. Again, nothing that should be too difficult. You're plugging in numbers and you're simplifying, right? I kept saying that in the lessons, right? You don't freak out. The formulas look a little wacko, but when you plug in the numbers, just work them out little by little. It should be pretty simple. Okay. All right. So now we're going to move on. There's one more question from section 8.3 that I'm going to do close to the end, but we're now moving to section 8.4. Okay. So the stuff we just did, that was 8.3. Though there's one extra one I want to do from 8.3 that we'll see towards the end. So finding the sum. So this says for part A, remember the sigma, the weird E, means find the sum from n equal to 1 to 14 of 2n plus 1. Okay, so you're going to plug in numbers into the expression 2n plus 1, and you're going to give me the sum of plugging in a 1, plugging in a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, 6, etc., all the way up to 14. But that would take forever, right? Because you're going to have to do 14 calculations, and then all those answers, you're going to add them together. There's got to be a better way, and there is. So I kind of wrote it for us yesterday, but we had to figure out what is n, right? So we had to find n. We had to find a sub 1, and we had to find a sub n. This is what we needed. Now, why do I know I need those three things? Because if you remember when I did the little chart, let me go back and show you real quick, and then I'll come down back to this thing. But when I showed you the chart, I told you when you use sigma notation, that's related to the top equation. And when you're going to use the top equation, what do you need to know? N, a sub 1, and a sub n, right? Those are the things that I have to know. That's why when I saw sigma notation, my first gut reaction is to find n, a sub 1, and a sub n, because I need them, because I'm going to plug them into that formula, right? I'm going to plug them into this formula right here. Okay, there's a reason why I do this stuff in green, because it's required. I have to know that. I have to remember, like, these two equations are related. In order to use the top equation, I need these three things. Okay, so I'm not sure if you remember the formula for n, but I wrote it down right here. N is found by getting b minus a and then adding 1. Well, b is the upper bound, so that's the number 14, right? Above the sigma, that's your b value. A is the bottom number, so that's 1. Okay, so 14 minus 1 plus 1, so that's, what comes out to 14. N is 14. Because 14 minus 1 is 13, 13 plus 1 is 14. A sub 1, to find a sub 1, you're going to get your lower bound, which in our case happens to be a 1, and you're going to plug it into the little formula 2n plus 1. So it's 2 times 1 plus 1. That's 2 plus 1, that's 3. So a sub 1 is 3. Whatever the lower bound is, if this happens to be a 6, that means you plug in a 6 into the 2n plus 1. Okay, if it's a 1, you plug in a 1. To find a sub n, you're going to plug in your upper bound, right? The top number, so 14. So 2 times 14 plus 1, that's 28 plus 1. So this comes out to 29. So a sub n is 29. And now I have everything I need to plug into that little equation. And again, use your calculator or do it in your head, however you want. So S sub n is S sub 14. That's 14 divided by 2. A sub 1 is 3 plus A sub n is 29. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 3 plus 29, that's 32. 7 times 32, well, 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 3 is 21. Add 1, so 224. And there's your sum. Notice I'm still using the stuff from section 8.3 to do the stuff in section 8.4, right? The sigma notation. It's not that it's hard to do. I think I told you guys this multiple times yesterday. It's not that doing this is now harder to do. It's just there's more process to do, right? You got to find your n. You got to find your a1 and your an. They're not just giving it to you. They're not just gifting it to you, right? Like they do in section 8.3. Here, you're going to have to figure them out. But once you figure them out, then they're the same as section 8.3. Just get that information and plug it in. We're going to do one more of these, and then we're going to do one of these, and then we're done, okay? So this is the same. You might say, well, why are we doing another one? Well, remember what I told you guys, that there was a little trick, a little shortcut you could do to find your n value. If your lower bound was a 1, in other words, if this said k equals 1 on the bottom, then n would be 9. I don't even have to calculate it, okay? If the lower bound here was a 1, then n is always the top number, okay? But if the lower bound is not a 1, then n is not the top number. You're going to have to figure it out. So that's why I always just make us figure it out anyway, because it just makes it more consistent in what we're doing. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put find n here, find a sub 1, and find a sub n. Okay, n is b minus a over, plus 1. B minus a, that's 9 minus 3 plus 1. 9 minus 3 is 6. 6 plus 1, that's 7. Okay, so n is 7. Notice it's not 9. It's not the top number. It's 7. Finding a sub 1. To find a sub 1, I'm going to plug my lower bound, the 3, into 4k minus 2. You always plug in the lower bound. So 4 times 3 minus 2, that's 12 minus 2, which is 10. So a sub 1 is 10. Remember, guys, a sub 1 does not mean plug in a 1. A sub 1 means the first term. That's what 1 means, first. A sub 2 means second. Not plug in a 2. That means plug in that you're trying to find the second term. Okay? So that's what that subscript means. Sometimes people think a sub 1 means automatically plug in a 1. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. All right, a sub n, we're going to plug in our upper bound, the 9. Okay? So 4 times 9 minus 2, that's 36 minus 2, so that's 34. Okay, so 4 times 9 is 36 minus 2, it comes out to 34. That's my a sub n. So now all I'm going to do is just plug in those numbers and figure out my sum into this formula here, right? The same formula that I highlighted for you guys earlier, right? We're using the formula from 8.3, the very top one, what we call the easier one, okay? So S sub 7 is equal to 7 over 2 times a sub 1 plus a sub n, that's 10 plus 34. 7 cannot be divided by 2 evenly, so I'm going to leave it as a fraction. And 10 plus 34, that's 44. I can divide 44 by 2, that becomes 22. So 7 times 22, right? And then 7 times 22, that's 154. That's S sub 7. That's the sum of the first 7 terms, or the terms from 3 to 9, I guess you could say. So this is how section 8.4 was. Okay? Very similar to section 8.3. It just starts differently. But in the end, it's all done the same way. We're using a formula to plug numbers in to find, calculate a value. Okay? So if you missed yesterday's but saw 8.3, it's the same idea. It's just we're looking for different things. Okay? The video's online and everything, so you guys can watch it from there. Here's the last one. Actually, I was wrong. There's the one that we haven't done is finding n. So I'm sorry, I lied. There's 2. This one and then one more. But all this stuff will be on your quiz. So, I mean, I want to review it all. So this is the last one of the sum problems where we're trying to find an actual sum. Okay, example 3 is trying to find the n value. How many terms? So instead of giving you a sub 1 and a sub n, or maybe a d value or stuff like that, you're having to figure all that stuff out except for the n. I'm telling you how many terms I want you to add. So I said n equals 14. So right now we only have 4 terms up there, -4, 2, 8, 14, and there are 10 more that I would have to figure out and then add those up to find their sum. And I could do that. I can list them all and do that. It just takes a while. So it's better to kind of use a formula, okay? So what do I know based on this? First term is what? -4. I also know that n is 14, right? What else do I know? A sub n is 6. Close. That is right, but not a sub n. D, right? It's changing by 6, right? So that's what they call the common difference, right? But that is the correct number. So D is 6. So whenever you get a problem like this, they will not give you a sub n. They'll give you the D value, okay? So that means I got to use equation 2 out of those 3, right? So S sub 14, I'm sorry, let me write it down. S sub n is equal to n over 2 twice a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. We're just going to use that formula. So S sub 14 is 14 over 2 twice a sub 1, which is -4, plus n minus 1, so that's 14 minus 1 times d, which is 6. And then from here, it's just be careful, right? Making sure that you're calculating right. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. This is -8 plus 13 times 6. 13 times 6, let me rewrite this really quick. So 13 times 6, that's going to be an 18. So 78. So it's 7 times 70, which comes out to 490, right? So let me just write the answer over here. S sub 14 is 490. Not hard to do. Again, it's just the calculations might be a little tricky, but I'm doing this in my head. If you want to do it on a calculator, it'll make it even easier. Okay. So don't struggle if you don't need to. I have enough calculators for pretty much everybody. Okay. So are we good with all that stuff? I mean, that's I think I said it yesterday. This is the meat of those two sections, how to add these things up. Okay, using different formulas, whether it be in sigma notation or the two different sums. It depends on what they give you. That tells you what you're going to use. Okay, so but again, I did show you guys on the chart. The first equation is important for both of the lessons. So it's important you know that one for sure. Okay. So here we go. Very last one. I totally forgot that I made you guys do one of these. So this one says, how many terms n were needed to find a sum of 200, given that your first term was 10 and your last term was 70? So how many terms are needed to find a sum of 200, given that we start at 10 and we stop at 70? How many numbers did we add up together? It doesn't matter which numbers. They just want to know how many. So I know that I have to start at 10, and I know I have to end at 70. But how many numbers are in between, right? There could be 30 numbers in between, 6 numbers in between. I don't know. How many did we add up? I know we added up 2 for sure. 10 and 70. That came out to 80. So I'm missing 120 in there. Okay, there should be 120 total sum somehow. Okay, so my job is to figure out how many numbers were actually used, not which numbers, how many. Okay, so we're still going to use this formula. Notice we're not changing what we're supposed to know. Okay, we're going to use that formula. We're going to plug in what they gave us. They told me that S sub n is 200. N, I don't know what it is. That's what I'm trying to solve for. A sub 1 is 10. A sub n is 70. 10 plus 70 is 80. 80 divided by 2 is 40. So that's 40n. And then if I divide both sides by 40, what do I get for n? It's a small number. It's 5. And that's it. This is my answer. I don't need to figure out which 5 numbers they are. I could, if I wanted to, I could probably figure it out. Okay? Because now I know what n is. I know what a sub 1 is and a sub n. So then I could use my formula with the d value to figure out what the common difference is, then add them all up. But we don't have to do any of that stuff. Okay? They just want to know how many terms did I add up. So in other words, I got 10, I got 70, I need 3 more. Right? I got to figure out the middle 3 if I had to. But they're not going to make me do that. They just need to know how many. So we just added 5 numbers. That's it. That's how they got 200. Okay? So this is what your quiz is on tomorrow, guys. It's mostly using formulas. Okay? For the most part, you're using formulas. Every once in a while, you might have to figure out what the first term is and the last term and stuff like that. But for the most part, everything is formula based. Look at every single example. I used the same formula for example 3. This part C, I used the alternate form. Then this was the easier form, the first one. This one was the easier form as well. This one was the alternate form. This one was the easier form, right? So you have to know all 3. Like I said, I will write them down for you guys, okay? I'll write this stuff down for you guys. That way, in case you forget, you can have them. But you do have to kind of practice with them. So don't just say like, oh, he'll give me the formulas, I'm good. Like, no, do a problem and try to make sure you know how to utilize these formulas. Because if not, then what good is a formula if you've never done it, right? Same thing. Mechanics don't just pick up a book and say, oh, I know how to fix cars now, right? Like, no, the book helps you, right? But you still have to do it yourself to learn. Okay, so please make sure you put a little bit of time into this before tomorrow. All right. Remember, homework is due tomorrow, so don't forget. And Alex, the last Alex is live, and it is due, I think, May 11th. I forgot. I sent you an email with that. So make sure you guys are aware of that.